Thank you for listening today on Revealing Wholeness, sponsored by Infinity Whole Health. Check out our website at infinityWholeHealth.com, where we are revealing the eternal in each individual, the infinite in the individual. The creativity is made manifest. Limitation is let go. Now, here's your host, Dr. Troy Munson.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson at Infinity Whole Health. If you're seeing us on Facebook Live, please like us. We have many podcasts on iHeartRadio at Revealing Wholeness. We're talking about indiscretions. And indiscretions are things that we know we're just going to do, but can I help my body through it? And yes, so indiscretions, how to have life's cakes and eat them too. And so as we embark, we're going to talk about things like illicit drugs. We're going to talk about medications. We're going to talk about over-exercising, having sex. Those are all things that are tough on the body. Even lack of sleep or sleep deprivation and stress. Those are all things that are hard on the body that we're going to get to topic by topic. And so the first part of indiscretions is about alcohol. And so alcohol itself, we look at alcohol and we think, wow, I could have a beer, I could have some whiskey, I could have some vodka, I could have, a wine cooler, I could have wine. All those alcohols are not necessarily created equal. When we look at bread, like a lot of my clients realize, man, when I eat bread, when I eat pasta, I'm sensitive to that stuff and I'm really fatigued. I don't feel good and I have a lot more joint pain. And so some of you out there that have already noticed that and have gone keto or low grain or done some eating styles that have literally removed that stuff from your lifestyle, you're going to want to choose alcohol that maybe is kind of the same way. We look at beer. Beer comes from barley and hops, and so it's a grain alcohol. And so you're going to find that you're going to be more sluggish with beer. Whiskey is another grain alcohol. Again, find yourself being more sluggish and affected by that, and maybe even the gut too, if you're a little bit more sensitive to gluten. Where we look at vodka, vodka comes from potatoes. Yes, it's a starch, but ultimately it's a little bit easier on the body to handle, by the way. And wine is just sugar. So we look at a grape. A grape is just glucose or sugar, where a lot of other fruits are fructose. Fructose tends to have a free rein to go right into the cells of our body and will spike blood sugar quite fast. Now, glucose in and of itself is fast, but it's slower than fructose. It's not as damaging and harmful. And so if we were going to choose one of the better alcohols, we would say, hey, wine is your better bet. And I would go with an organic wine. Why even put more toxins into your body that you really don't need to if you can do it? And so with that said, let's get into the 5 things that you can do that will help your body process and handle and not be so bludgeoned by a night of drinking. So, first, hydration. How many of you have ever eaten a really sugary meal and realized, man, I'm so thirsty? I remember I used to do that eating ice cream, and I'd be so thirsty afterwards. And now that my body is much more balanced and blood sugar is more stable, I notice that I'm not as thirsty. But I watch people that will eat things or drink things that are very, very sugary, and man, they're just pounding even more water. They're so thirsty. And I find that very interesting. Well, if we're going to help process alcohol, we need to dilute it a little bit. So being very hydrated before you begin the night out, so to speak, excellent idea to drink extra water. I'm going to talk about water in just a bit here as well, but let's move on. I want to make mention that the reason that we would drink extra water when we eat sugary things is, once again, to dilute that sugar from getting into our cells and trying to help. So that should give you a clue. Even if you're going to go eat something sugary, might be nice to hydrate. Now next, ask anybody, what organ is damaged when we drink a lot? Now, I know some of you out there thinking, brain, that's true too, but most of us are going to realize it's the liver. And so our liver, we want to protect it in any way, shape, or form that we can. So some of you have heard my podcast and realized, hey, what do we do if we have an organ that's under stress? Well, we technically eat that organ. And so if you were to eat liver before you went out on a night of drinking, that would be a wise thing. I don't want to do that personally. Some of you may like liver. Great, go for it. I'd rather get it in a pill. And so for me, I'm just going to take a couple Livoplex before and after, and maybe even right at bedtime, and I'm going to drink a bunch of extra water with it. I'm just going to try to help. There are some herbs that are very helpful to helping the liver process, silymarin being one of them. Blue plurium is good. St. John's wort, all those are excellent. Some are a little bit more clearing than others. Some are just more liver protective to try and help the onslaught of the alcohol. all are fair game. So a wise thing to do. If you have questions, concerns about where would I get a good quality herb, which is always of the most important value because a lot of herbs out there aren't very good, please message me. We'll talk about it. Now, third, how can we metabolize the alcohol faster? That's the name of the game. Some people, they can just drink and they don't ever feel it, or at least it takes a lot for them to feel it. Others we call lightweights. They have one sip and they're already buzzed. It's the ability to process the alcohol and to break it down and metabolize it. Well, there's an herb that can be really, really helpful doing that. And I love it in a liquid extract because now I can put it in my water that I'm hydrating with, like we talked about at the beginning, and that is licorice. So licorice root is excellent for doing that. And people are like, I don't like black licorice. Licorice doesn't taste like black licorice until you add molasses to it. And so licorice tastes more to me like anise seed. And anise seed is, well, it's kind of licorice flavored. But if you're ever wondering, go have some licorice tea somewhere. It's fantastic. It's very naturally sweet. I love it. And so licorice is high in potassium, which is part of what's helping us process it. We're going to talk a little bit more about potassium in just a moment. So a good herbal extract of licorice root. Next is to help balance blood sugar. We talked about hydration, but we can also do trace minerals and calcium. And so trace minerals and calcium both are found in, it shouldn't come to a major surprise to us, but if we go find sugar in nature, we go right to sugarcane. It's the easiest thing to go to. So we would look at sugarcane and we get glucose out of it and we get this black tarry substance that we call molasses that I mentioned just a little bit ago. Molasses is high calcium, magnesium, B vitamins, trace minerals. That helps our body process all that sugar that was in the sugarcane. But what do? We just eat the white granulated sugar and everything. And so we deplete ourselves of all of these minerals that should be going in. So when we're drinking alcohol, it's a wise move to get something like that in your body. Now, I don't like molasses. I know some people that just love it. I'm like, wow, lucky you. But I don't. And so I do a trace minerals product that has kelp and alfalfa in it that has a lot of natural B vitamins, a lot of natural C, a lot of natural E, plus that whole range of minerals. And so I would choose to do it that way. It seems easier to me. So last and certainly not least is raw honey. Raw honey is a fantastic source of potassium, but also of trace minerals. It's an excellent thing to do to try to help balance. Even though it has sugar in it, those are low glycemic sugars that are in it. Now, for those of you that already have sugar imbalance, I might say, hey, let's not do some of the honeys. Let's go after more of the molasses, the trace minerals, the liver support, the hydration. Those things would be a little bit better. What I love is D.C. Jarvis. He wrote a book back in the 50s because he would correspond with all these doctors that he met in med school. And since he came from this Vermont background where they did a lot of natural things and a lot of natural remedies to try to keep their animals healthy because they were kind of small society over there, especially back then. And these doctors would correspond with him and write him letters and say, I got this client that has this issue. What can I do for that? So he would write back to them what to do. And he started compiling all that into a book called Vermont Folk Medicine. An excellent book, fascinating book. He talks about in there, one of the excerpts, that they had an alcoholic male that they gave 6 tablespoons of honey to every 20 minutes. And then they had a little bit of whiskey, they said, or vodka sitting on the nightstand that it gave him. And they did that for like 6 hours. And then it was finished when he woke up. So he must have got up some point in time and drank it. But they started again right in the morning drinking or giving him honey. And within about 20 hours, he's like, I don't want any more alcohol. And they literally fixed his addiction because of, a lot of times we'll go after alcohol if we're very deficient in potassium. So as we start getting more potassium, that really works on the adrenals and now starts calming the whole system down. And when my adrenals become stronger, I have less and less addictive tendencies. So fascinating little thing there to consider. If you have questions, concerns on that, please message me. Happy to talk a little bit more at length on that. So last thing, a little bonus here. If you're going to go do something that you know you shouldn't do, or let's say that you're a business person, you're going to have some people in from out of town business-wise, and you have to kind of entertain them, and you don't know what you're going to get into, you could get adjusted before you go into that evening of that possible drinking or over drinking, because maybe that's just how they tend to party and you're just going to fit along with them. Maybe you have relatives over and that's just what you do and you know you're going to do it. So, okay, well, what can I do? You can get an adjustment. Remember, when we put our spine into a line, we communicate our body with this brain so much better that the brain controls everything much more efficiently. Why wouldn't we want to get adjusted? And those of you who have been to chiropractors for long term have probably noticed, wow, I do sleep better when I get regularly adjusted. I do have more energy when I get regularly adjusted. My digestion's better. I think more clearly. All these little benefits from chiropractic, because why wouldn't the whole body work and perform better when the brain can correctly communicate with it? So definitely get adjusted. Next, after that night and you've woken up the next morning and you're hydrating, it might be wise to do a sauna or a hot bath with Epsom salt. So like a mineral salt bath would be phenomenal to do to try to sweat out some of that toxicity. You could go exercise, but make sure you're very, very well hydrated. Now, one of the things that you can also do to kind of help detox is like the herbal supplements that we talked about. We can do herbs that the next morning now begin to help even more. Let's say you've cooked enough liver the night before because you enjoy it, and you're going to do that the next morning. Maybe you wake up and do a tablespoon of honey first thing in the morning. All of that is fair game, and I very much recommend it. So there's alcohol for you. Next time, we're going to talk about recreational drugs. And so we're going to say, okay, what do we do in that kind of scenario to help my body perform when I'm doing those things? So until next time, I'm Dr. Troy Munson at Infinity Whole Health, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach Dr. Munson at 360-893-8586 or email him at chiroman@dr.com. That's chiroman@dr.com. Check out our current workshop schedule on Facebook at Infinity Whole Health.